Welcome to the Winning Platform Owner Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to enabling ServiceNow platform owners with valuable knowledge, tools, and strategies. All ServiceNow platform owners will typically face some common issues, and even though they're very common, we really need to try and avoid them. The good news is that even though you will face these common issues, you don't have to get stuck on them. There is a solution. So, if you're ready to hear more about the issues and then the solution that will ultimately solve them and set you up for long-term success, then let's go. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm Ben Pierce, your host on the Winning Platform Owner Podcast, which is all about making you more successful as a ServiceNow platform owner. So consider subscribing to the podcast. Use it as a tool for your success. Everybody needs somebody to pour into them and empower them. So let me do that for you. Let the podcast do that for you. And I would greatly appreciate it. All right, so we're talking about common issues on this episode. And these are common issues that organizations will typically face when they implement the ServiceNow platform and when they are beginning to use the ServiceNow platform. I'm going to list off, 3 or 4 real common ones that I see a lot in my line of work. And then we'll talk about some questions that you can ask yourself around each one of these. So we'll kind of unpack them. We'll talk a lot about the common issues and then talk about, okay, what is this solution that really it does solve all of them. It's best practice from ServiceNow, but I'm telling you, in my experience, it really does help you out and set you up for the long term in terms of your success. So let's go for it. Number one common issue that we see is the inability to accelerate the delivery of value. And it typically goes something like this. An organization will implement ServiceNow, and maybe it's the ITSM capabilities, or it could be some other things like HR, SD, or CSM or GRC, whatever the case may be. They implement on the platform, and it goes really great. It's hard, but it goes good. And when they do this, especially in the ITSM space, it's really transformational for the organization. And so people start to get the word, right? And all of a sudden, the demand comes out of the woodwork. It's insatiable. And so what happens is you end up with this big stack of demands that are hard to deliver on. And then you also have the daily operations and maintenance on the platform that you're trying to do. And if you're not careful, you can start to grind to a slow halt in how you're delivering on the platform. So the teams can't get those demands all the way through the pipeline, and so the value starts to diminish over time, and pretty soon I've seen in worst case scenario that it's just totally frozen up. It's really hard for them to even deliver something every 2 weeks. So that acceleration of value just starts to go away. And you may have experienced this. So if you have, just know you're not alone. A lot of organizations experience it, but it's a pretty common issue. What's the next one? So being unable to maintain the health of the platform. A lot of times organizations and platform owners and platform teams will start to run into health-related issues on the platform. It doesn't happen right away, but over time, because maybe they are in a rush, or maybe they're under the gun because of that value delivery problem, that they will take shortcuts maybe, or worst case scenario, it's just bad architectural decisions where they decide to customize something on the platform, or they decide to make an application on the platform, try and do something that it's not really designed to do. It's actually designed to work in another part of the platform. it can be all kinds of causes, but what happens is the health of the platform gradually degrades. And it causes all kinds of issues. It causes your upgrade times to be very long, almost just balloon out into like impossible times. Like it can't take you a whole quarter to upgrade the platform. But in some cases, organizations have gotten to that point where the health has degraded that much. And it has all kinds of other issues, like you're unable to take up new features that are released in those upgrades because of some customization that you've done. So being unable to maintain the health of the platform is common issue number 2. If you're having that issue, just know that you're not alone, but you do need to figure out a way to fix it. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. The third one is closely related, and you have to be able to easily take advantage of those new platform capabilities. Why? Because that's what people are looking at. Let's be honest. That's what ServiceNow always is pushing with those new releases. It's this new capability that then your VP of IT or your CIO or your VP of HR, whomever, sees that. We want that. And then all of a sudden the question is, well, you're telling me we can't do that on our platform? Why is that? So it needs to be easy to uptake on new platform features, but a lot of organizations struggle with doing that. So that's common issue number 3. Common issue number 4 is not so much a platform issue as it is a process and governance issue. And unfortunately, this one is really common. It's the inability to articulate the value that you've delivered on the platform and justify future investment. So what happens is there's a lot of good work being done on the platform. It's a lot of effort that's been put into it, a lot of investment, and nobody's really talking about how all of that effort matches up to value that the business really desires. And so because of that, and because no one's talking about that and continually communicating that, it becomes hard to justify any future investment, not because you're not delivering value on the platform, but because you haven't spent the time communicating it and you haven't been able to go through the mental exercise of doing that mapping. So if somebody asks you to justify the investment on the platform, you kind of look at them with a blank stare and go, okay, well, I'll have to go back and kind of do some work and put together a slide deck and all of that stuff. So common issue, very common issue, not being able to articulate the value delivered on the platform and justify future investment. So those were our 4. In case you missed it or in case you lost track, number 1, inability to accelerate the value delivery. Number 2, inability to maintain the health of the platform. Number 3, inability to easily take advantage of new features on the platform. And number 4, unable to articulate the value delivered on the platform and therefore justify future investments. Now, these are all very common issues, and there are some questions that you can ask. Maybe it's been easy for you to talk about those different issues and go, yeah, I've got that one, I've got that one, I've got that one. I'm just telling you, as a former platform owner, I had all of them, right? And now you struggle with how to solve those problems. I think these key questions around these different problems can be really helpful to you. So I'm going to go through them, and the questions, if you can't answer yes to them, then you know you probably need to dig in and fix that one, because if you're not experiencing that common issue, you're going to pretty soon. So let's run these down. We'll go in the same order. So the inability to accelerate value delivery. The first question is, can the ServiceNow team support current and future platform objectives? Interesting question, right? What's the key to that? the key is, if you feel like if tomorrow your leadership or someone else in the organization turned around and said, hey, we want to start using this whole other suite, maybe we want to start using GRC on the platform. If your support team and your ServiceNow team, if you know they would not be able to handle that because of the demand volume that they've already got, because of the administrative overhead that you've already got, that's going to be a problem. You're on the cusp. Even if you are delivering just fine right now and you've got a good flow of value delivery, if you answer no to that question, then you're on the cusp of not being able to accelerate your value delivery, because you want to have that space, that headroom, if you will, to continue to incrementally accelerate. And if somebody came to you and said, I want to start using this whole other part of the application, and in your mind you're going, oh man, I don't know how we would support that. Within reason, right? I'm not talking about, obviously you need to get your staff trained up on that module and things like that. But if just systematically and with your team, you go, I'm scared of that, this is not going to end well, then you've got an accelerate value delivery problem. The second question on that one is, can you easily respond to changes in the business and effectively kind of pivot and begin delivering value? If you can't do that, and the best example of this was COVID, we all lived through it, lots of things changed and we did a lot of things differently. And so if the platform, if you weren't able to pivot either because of your governance or your structure, your team structures, or even the health of the platform, then you've got a value delivery you've got an accelerate value delivery problem that you're getting ready to have. So those are two questions around accelerating value delivery. Now, maintaining platform health. Here are your two questions that you can ask yourself. Are we taking on technical debt that will slow us down or lock out new business features? Now, you always, as a platform owner, you kind of have a gut sense of where you're taking on technical debt, but sometimes it hides from you, right? If you've got a team that's generally pretty good, sometimes somebody will fudge something, they won't do something according to best practice just because they want to get it out the door, and that hides from you. So you want to be sure that you know if you're taking on technical debt or not. So that's the first part of that question, because it's going to slow you down. The second part of that question is, for the technical debt that you do have, how much does it slow you down? Do you need to reduce that? So that's key question number one for maintaining the platform health. Are you taking on technical debt that will slow you down or lock out new business features? The second question is, can you ensure that your ServiceNow development and configuration is in accordance with best practices? And the key word there is ensure, because if I were to ask you that in kind of my typical professional interaction that I have with people, what I'm looking for is proof. So it's not enough for you to go, oh yeah, we're developing and configuring according to best practice. I want to see your health scan scores. I want to see, different metrics around that I can say, okay, yes, you are developing and configuring and architecting, for that matter, according to ServiceNow best practice. So keep those two questions in mind for maintaining platform health. What about utilizing new platform capabilities? First question, are design decisions aligned to platform strategy? And if your answer to that is, well, we don't have a platform strategy, I'll just tell you, you're not alone in the world. Lots of people don't, but that's a problem, because you need to have that platform strategy to guide those different decisions. And so if your answer is no to the question, or no, I don't have a platform strategy, you've got some work to do in the utilizing new platform capabilities area. Second question for that one is, are we addressing solutions in the right way according to ServiceNow best practice? Sounds a lot like that maintain health area, but the reason that it's here under utilizing new platform capabilities is because that's what it really impacts. So if you answer no to that question, then you know you have to dig deeper, and you're probably going to end up back over in the maintain platform health area. All right, last one is showing value on the platform. Remember, that was all about being able to articulate business value and then therefore justify investments in the future. So the first question is, are we executing the right outcomes that align to business strategic objectives? So important. Many times, platform teams, platform owners, even executive sponsors will get kind of caught up in all of the work that's being done. And let's say they're not even having that accelerate value delivery problem. Let's say it's coming out of the pipe like gangbusters. Every 2 weeks, there's lots of value being delivered. That's great. That's a lot of work. If it's not tied to the organization's strategic objectives, in other words, you can't say, hey, we're doing this because of this organizational priority, and this is how it maps, right? So this is in accordance with that priority, and this is how we're contributing to it. That's a big problem. It's going to make it very hard for you to justify any further investment. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because you're always delivering good stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're not contributing to those strategic objectives, best case scenario, people start asking you as a platform owner, well, why aren't you aligning to this? Why are you kind of enabling all of this ancillary stuff that's maybe good stuff, but it's not contributing to the main goals? So important question there. The second question there is, can we easily play back that business value of the platform and the work done on it? And so the key word here is easily. I like to use like a 1 or 2 slide set, preferably 1 slide, that is basically a value snapshot, and it shows here's the problem that was being had by the business, and here's what needed to be solved. Here are the different things on the platform that solved it, and here's what it looks like now, and that's where you really get to describe the business value. It's executive level reading, so it needs to be crisp. It needs to be really tight, right? You can't have a 2-page paper written on it. This has to be really succinct. And when you can do that, and when you can do that regularly, then all of a sudden it becomes easy to not just communicate that value, it actually becomes pretty fun to communicate that value. It becomes very easy to justify future investments, and that's really part of showing platform value. Executive sponsors love that stuff. They love that value snapshot stuff because it's so useful. If they can go into a room with their peers and just take one of those out of their hip pocket and just say, look, here's an example, that's gangbusters. It goes a long way in enabling them to be a good executive sponsor for you. But that's kind of an aside. So those are our questions around those different common issues. So what's the solution? It's pretty simple. And ServiceNow will give you this practice, this best practice, and a lot of information around it. But if you establish what's called a platform operating model, it's going to provide you a structure to answer each of those questions that I just went through, which in turn helps you avoid those common issues. So you'll be able to answer yes to all of those questions. You're going to avoid those common issues. But But that platform operating model is what gives you the structure for that. Now, it's hard work to put it into place, and it takes a lot of discipline, but it is worth it. And when you do that, what you do is set yourself up for really strong long-term success in terms of the value that you can deliver on the platform. Not your value, but value for your business. So what is a platform operating model, and what are its main components? I'm not going to dig deep into all of it. There's a ton of detail actually on the platform operating model. You can find it on the ServiceNow websites, on YouTube probably, although I haven't looked on YouTube for that stuff. But one place you can find a lot of it is in the customer success area of the ServiceNow website. But here are the key things in my opinion. And here's what I've seen matter for organizations. And in my experience as platform owner, it mattered in my organizations. First of all, your platform operating model is going to be composed primarily of three things. One is governance, structure, and processes. Two is demand and delivery processes. Three, team structure and scalable team structure. So number one, the governance structures, and those have to be lean. So you're going to put into place lean governance structures that allow you to stay in alignment strategically and make it a lot easier to answer yes to those questions for value delivery. They also help you to stay in alignment for your technical governance, which helps keep your healthier platform at a very high percentage. You want it to be like 100% healthy. That's tough to do, but the governance around the technical aspects of the platform help you do that. So number one is lean governance structures. You got to put those into place for the platform operating model. The second one, demand management and delivery processes. So think about your delivery pipeline for the ServiceNow platform. You have to take care of intake. It has to be easy. You have to be able to grab those. You have to be able to prioritize them according to your strategic priorities and all of that stuff and the complexity of them, all of that good demand management work. That has to be in place. And then you have to have your delivery processes in place. And those have to be agile processes. You have to be delivering on cadence. And those have to be really bulletproof, right? So this takes a lot of discipline to do. But when you have that, you have the second component of the platform operating model, in my experience. Third is your team structure. And you need to have your team squared away for now, but you also have to have like a target architecture or structure for the future. So what do I mean by that? First of all, you have to have the right skills for you now, right? That's a pretty easy one. So how is your team structured? Is it supporting you now? If it's not, you got to change something. And then look at that structure and go, okay, in the future, I need a scalable team structure. And ServiceNow has good models for this. But you basically have to look at that, review it, and go, okay, here's what we need our future structure to look like. It's kind of the target architecture for your team structure. What that allows you to do is if you get to a point where you got to grow that team really fast, or you get to a point where you have multiple different applications, you have ITSM, you have HR, you have a number of other things on the platform, that target architecture, that scalable structure allows you to handle that without breaking that whole team or set of teams. So you want to plan for that. It makes it a lot easier to scale out when you need to, and you can scale fairly quickly because you've already thought it all through. In my experience, those are the three big pieces of the platform operating model. But the platform operating model, it's going to help you avoid all those common issues. So think about your lean governance, think about your demand and delivery processes, and your scalable team structure. So what do you do next? That's usually the question that I get. And so if you're a platform owner, what you want to do is you want to engage with your executive sponsor. If you're an executive sponsor, you want to engage with your platform owner on this topic. And you want to talk it through. Ask yourselves those questions. Get on the same page with this. And then you need to go deep on each of those areas. And so if you're having a particular issue with one of those common problems, attack that first. But don't forget about the other parts of the platform operating model. So go deep, figure out what you need to do in your governance, in your intake and delivery, in your scalable team structure. And if you need help, then you got to ask for it. I am happy to help you. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to help you. You may need a partner to help you, and that is definitely a common thing that organizations do. And so nothing wrong with that at all, to help have a partner come and help get you started on this journey with the ServiceNow platform operating model. All right, that's the content I have for you this time. If you've gotten value out of this episode, consider subscribing to the podcast and consider sharing it with someone who would find it valuable also. I know I appreciate it when I see downloads of the podcast, and I really appreciate it when I see subscriptions to the podcast. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for listening to the Winning Platform Owner podcast. Be humble, be kind, and we'll see you next time.